guys, FilmCrazyAdam here. Looks like I'm about to do a Bohemian Rhapsody video. That is awesome. Hold on, let me put on some lights. Yeah, it's a little dark here because it's almost 9 o'clock, and I have the sun setting behind me actually, which is why it's a little darker. I thought it was brighter. Anyway, I'm coming to you live from Lubbock, Texas, where my brother is actually on his way in from New Mexico, which is about an hour, 40-minute drive for him. And whenever I'm driving through Texas, or at least Amarillo or Lubbock, if at all possible, we do try and meet up because I don't get to see my brother that much because he lives in New Mexico and I live in New Jersey. So this actually, it's actually pretty cool that as a truck driver, if I'm passing through and I'm spending the night in one of those two cities, Lubbock or Amarillo, my brother, so far on one other occasion, he's coming to have dinner with me, and then he goes home for the night. But anyway, he's on his way in right now, and me and him are going to go see X-Men Days of Future Past. So if my phone chirps, that means he's here and I'm going to have to kill the video. But anyway, my thoughts going into X-Men Days of Future Past. Trailer looks good. I know what the story is for Days of Future Past. I watched the 1990s cartoon of X-Men, and I watched that two-parter. I've done a little bit of research for the comics because, like I've said, I think I said it in the Man of Steel review, that I'm a fan of comics or comic book heroes, but I've only read 3 comics in my whole life, which one of my really good friends, and there's probably other people out there who feel this too, that because I've never read an entire series of comics, because I haven't read every single individual comic of a certain hero, I am completely ill-equipped and should not be allowed to voice my opinion of a movie because I am not fully versed in the comics. Though I do have the intranet, and I do have other source material, like other cartoons. But there's some people like, well, you're not a comic book guy. I'm getting off on a tangent. Anyway, but that also puts me in a very unique situation. Whereas I have a lot of fan bases. I'm a fan of Doctor Who, Castle, Firefly, a lot of sci-fi stuff, Star Trek, Star Wars, tons of anime, video games. I've got a ton of interest. And so I'm one of those guys who knows a little about a lot. Actually, I kind of know a lot about a lot, but X-Men is one of those things where I like the concept, but I never really got into it. I never really became a huge fan of it. I was always aware of it because, and here's the thing, you have the X-Men, and you have the Brotherhood, and it always seemed to be like there was a new flavor of the week. Even in the comics, I was aware of this fact, that there was a new flavor of the week. What was the new power of the week? What was the new mutant that they met, or that they were fighting? That, it always became just a new monster of the week. It was very Scooby-Doo in that regard. You have the same crew of 5 guys and women, and they're fighting, okay, somebody new, and now they've got a new power, and we've got to figure out how to beat them. I know I'm really oversimplifying it, but I never really got into it, neither the cartoon nor the comics. I've done research on the side, so I know who Beast and Wolverine and Cyclops and Storm. I know that Storm and Cyclops at individual times were leaders of the X-Men. I'm not going to go into what I know about the X-Men. Bottom line is, I have a unique perspective that it's probably shared by a ton of people, where I'm actually going into the movie not knowing a lot about it. Usually that's not the case. Usually if it's based on a video game or a superhero, I go in with all this pre-knowledge and expectations going into a movie. So what am I saying? Ultimately, what does all this have to do with my opinion and my thoughts going into the movie? Is they're really open. I like what they did with X-Men First Class. I'm hoping they continue following that with those characters, James McAvoy and Michael Fassbender and what's her name, Jen. Yeah. But those 3 actors I thought were really good in that movie, and I hope that they're just as good in this movie. Of course, Ian McKellen and Patrick Stewart as Xavier and Magneto, fantastic. And Hugh Jackman also just fantastic. I love him as Wolverine. I hated Wolverine Origins. I thought they, well, hate is a strong word. I thought they dropped the ball on that one. I thought that it could have been way better. You'll really know what I think when I do. I heard that movie sucks because someone requested Wolverine Origins. But anyway, I've done enough talking. Let me go see this movie, and I'll let you know what I think. Laters. Alright, so I saw the movie last night. Coming to you fresh and bright the next morning, because I have a little time before I need to hit the road. I'm ahead of schedule. I didn't get in until like 1 a.m. last night, because me and my brother went to get something to eat after the movie. It's good seeing him. Always good. Anyway, the movie. Liked it. Another one I liked. Thank you, Hollywood, for not effing this one up. Oh, man. This movie could have gone bad so quickly. I mean, have you seen Wolverine Origins? God, how do you F that up? But, if you want my seal of approval, I give it. This movie's great. This movie's good. I'll even say it was awesome. Go check out X-Men Days of Future Past. It was fantastic. It was one of those where, again, they basically did everything right with a movie, where a good movie, well, the most basic job of a movie, or a sporting event, or a theater event, or a card trick, is to entertain people. And some people will say, oh, I liked it and it was a good movie because it entertained me. I was able to escape for whatever time. But a good movie not only provides escape, it provides a good story, and it's well done. You know, it's art, if you will. You know, I can't believe I just said that. But yeah, movie making is an art form, and if you're doing it right, if you're doing it well, it's more than just, you know, flashy lights and action scenes and explosions. So, a good movie will entice you with a question. In the trailer, there will be a question, and the question is usually, is he going to win the fight? Are the humans going to survive? Are we going to stop the alien invasion? You know, is he going to make it home on time? Are they going to get the kidney to the little girl before she dies? You know, tons of questions, like, you know, or just a couple questions. And then you watch the movie, and they start telling a story. And right away, you have more questions. You're like, okay, where are they going with this? And, alright, I see this, and okay, alright, but where are we going from here, and what's this? And so a movie will entice you with a question, and then give you more questions as you start watching it, but it will answer all those questions, and even maybe answer some questions that you didn't realize you were questioning. That's a good movie, and this movie did that. This movie, since it's the beginning of the movie, I'm not really spoiling anything, but the movie starts out in the future where the Earth has basically been overrun by Sentinel robots, and if you're any kind of fan of the X-Men, you know who they are. Me, I know who they are because of the video game and because of the 90s cartoon. But for the most part, like I said yesterday, I'm not a huge fan of the X-Men. For me, it just seemed like there's so damn many of them. I'll never remember who does what and who's a good guy and who's a bad guy. And there's like 60, 70 years worth of comics, and I can't follow that. I have done research. You know, I do, on my favorite X-Men and the one that I'm interested in, you know, I do research and I look up on them, and I've even read 1 or 2 comics, plus the different cartoon shows, X-Men from the 90s, X-Men Evolution from the late 90s, early 2000s, Wolverine the X-Men, which, that is a crime that they canceled that after, like, what, 13 episodes? Screw you, Nickelodeon, you screwed that one. But, I'm getting a little off topic. Basically, what I'm saying is that not everyone knows a lot about the X-Men. There's not a ton of people who know a ton about the X-Men. So, if you don't know anything about the X-Men, you don't know who the Sentinels are. The Sentinels are these robots that were made by humans to control the mutant population, because humans are afraid that mutants are going to exterminate them, basically. Like, we're better than they are, we have powers, we're just going to kind of up and kill them and become the new dominant species on the planet. And so the humans, being humans, you can't fight back, so they create robots that fight back for them. The movie starts out in the future where the world has been taken over by a-hole humans and just these robots, and everyone is being killed. And so we start off with a group of mutants, and a bunch of them are recognizable. We see Kitty Pryde, we see Shadowcat, we see Iceman. I knew who Bishop was because of the cartoon, but I recognized Bishop, and that was basically it. And a bunch of others, and they have a little stronghold, and suddenly they're attacked by Sentinels. At least we're told they're Sentinels. Really, they're just the giant robot from Thor that blasts fire out of its face. But these Sentinels show up, and Kitty and Bishop run off, and Kitty starts doing this thing with his head where she's like blasting energy into it. I'm like, what are they doing? You know, I have a question. I'm like, what are we doing here? What is that? What? And meanwhile, the other guy, and like they're like, we need enough time to do this, and they're like, all right, go, and the others start fighting and are just being murdered and literally dismembered by these Sentinels, just destroyed. Like the way they killed off Iceman, I thought was odd. Like I'm like, wow, that's pretty hardcore right there. And then right before Shadowcat and Bishop get killed, they vanish, and like the entire room changes, and you're just like, what the hell was that? What was that? What just happened? And then we meet up with Xavier and Magneto and Wolverine and Storm, and and they meet up with Shadowcat, and Shadowcat explains her power. It's like, well, I can send people back in time. I mean, you can argue that was an exposition thing, but like that was necessary exposition. People are like, what did you just? And you're like, yeah, I can do this. So already a question has been asked and answered, and so right away the audience starts thinking exactly what Xavier and Magneto start thinking, which is, you think we could send someone back in time to like fix this cluster frack? Yeah. And so it's so far so good in terms of storytelling. Like there's things that you don't know that they tell you how it's done, and then they start working towards, we go on from there, and we send Wolverine's ass back in time. Now, I have done some research. I've gone back and I've watched the 92 cartoon, and I've actually researched the comic, where in the comic, it's not Wolverine that goes back in time, it's actually Shadowcat. They send Shadowcat back in time to the early 80s to, stop an assassination. That's the whole thing that's going on, is that the Sentinel program starts off and becomes this whole thing, and it started off with an assassination. So I was really, I didn't know why. Like, why does Shadowcat have this power to send people back in time? I don't get it. I think they were just trying to pay homage to the comic. We gotta, we have to pay homage to the comic. So that's why Shadowcat doesn't have that power. She can phase through things like a ghost. I mean, that's her deal. And she's one of my favorite X-Men because of that power. But in this movie, she puts her hands on both sides of somebody's head and projects them back in time. However, that wasn't a deal breaker for me. I've mentioned this before, that some movies have deal breakers where there's enough BS that happens where you just go, yep, I'm done. Screw this movie. They're not taking it seriously. One of those things that almost happened for me was when Magneto reprograms the Sentinels by injecting metal into them, which maybe I misunderstood it, maybe, but that seemed to be like what he was doing was reprogramming Sentinels just by putting liquid metal into them. I didn't get that. Also, maybe I missed it. Maybe they did explain why Shadowcat has the ability to throw people back in time. Maybe, and I just missed it. I don't know. But it wasn't a deal breaker for me. And I really liked the movie. They did a really good job, like I said, of story flow. Like, the movie never dragged. Never dragged. The actors were fantastic. I love James McAvoy and Nick. Oh, God, I feel bad for not knowing his name. Nicholas. I love Nicholas. Nicholas, who played Beast, young Beast. He was in Jack the Giant. So I think he's really good. I like him. And Michael Fassbender. I love that man. That freaking, he is awesome in everything. Even that really bad Ridley Scott movie. I'm not talking about Prometheus. I'm talking about that other one from last year. But besides the point, I'm getting off topic again. On a side note, like I said yesterday, that I have a unique perspective that's not just unique to me, but I'm a huge fan of a lot of things. Anime, Doctor Who, Star Trek. There's a lot I'm a fan of. So I know a little about a lot. One of the things that I never really became a fan of was X-Men. And the reason being, like I said, is because there's just so damn many of them. I don't remember who does what. I have a friend who hated with a passion the way that like really far left Republicans hate Obama and the way really left Democrats hate Ronald Reagan. This guy hated X-Men First Class 10 times more than that because he was enough of a fan of the comics. He was a big enough fan that he knew. He's like, wait, that guy wasn't alive at that point in time, and that character doesn't do that, and Darwin doesn't die. That was actually kind of disappointing when they killed off Darwin, because his entire power, mutant power, is that he adapts. He can't be killed because he adapts too quickly. You can't kill him. But so he hated X-Men First Class. I really liked it. I really liked X-Men First Class. I thought it was well acted, well written, well told. Again, there wasn't any drag in that movie. Like, everything moved constantly. And I understand the fact that an X-Men movie, because people going to see this movie don't necessarily have the advantage of the last 50 years of comics and the last 3 or 4 cartoon shows that X-Men was made, that they don't have all this back knowledge. They don't have all this knowledge of X-Men. So, we have to boil it down for them. We have to dumb it down a little bit. We explain the mutants, what they are, who they are, what their powers are, and for the most part, if we're going to add a mutant in a movie, who the hell keeps honking their horn? If we're going to add a mutant in a movie, it's because of their power. Like, now that's starting to get annoying. It's for a plot, like, their powers are there for the plot device. Their powers can do this, thus we're having them in the movie and it's cool. So, he hated X-Men First Class. I don't know if he still hates it, but, yeah, this person doesn't do that, and that person wasn't friends with that, and that person wasn't alive. No! F this movie. No! They all have to screw these people. Whoever made this movie has to be dragged down the street and shot. This isn't a bomb. This is a crime. They need to be brought before a federal court. I don't know if he has seen X-Men Days of Future Past, or if he's going to like it. But, like I said, I'm not a huge fan of X-Men, so I've done research on them. I know who the characters are. I know what the storylines are. But I'm not so married to the comic that is a deal breaker. Like, oh, well, the fact that Wolverine is sent back in time instead of Kitty Pryde, I can see where some people will just walk out of the movie. No, they effed it up. Screw it. The story's ruined. I can see people doing that. This is kind of getting a little long, and I got to start getting ready to go. So I'm going to wrap this up. Yeah, I've been talking for like 15 minutes. So let me wrap this up by saying I thought it was a good story. I liked how the characters interacted. I liked how the storylines crossed, or I should say the timelines crossed. I thought they did a really good job about that and explaining everything. It was a good movie. It was a good superhero movie, and it was better than the fact that it was a superhero movie. Is that the superhero aspect almost became a side. It was put on the back burner. It's like it wasn't even about the fact that these people were mutants and had powers. I mean, like, that's what they're fighting for, like equality and not being exterminated. But you forgot about that because the story was more like we're fixing a problem in history. It was very Back to the Future in that regard, where we're not here to, blast people with energy waves and do all sorts of stuff and like phase through everything. We're here to fix this problem, and all the problem is, and the main focus of the story is the relationship between like Xavier, Magneto, and Mystique. Is like their broken relationship, because at the end of X-Men First Class they split, and relationships were and nerves were very frayed, and so yeah, this story was more like we're fixing this problem. It was a very like we're gonna fix this family problem, and I don't know why it just resonated with me. Like, how Xavier thinks of Raven as a sister, really does like love her as a sister, and so he is really broken up, really broken up about the fact that he somehow she left him. She hasn't talked to him. She's going off. She's decided that she's going to murder somebody, and it really breaks his heart. And so, watching this character go from the depths of despair and regaining hope and like getting the nerve up to walk again, and everyone just kind of supporting him, and seeing Magneto change. Like, you think of villains as very single-minded, and you can argue that he's still kind of single-minded, but to see where there's this one scene where it's him, Xavier, and Raven, and they're all in this one room, and he's debating whether or not to just murder Raven. He's like, she caused the future thing to go all wonky. If I kill her, that might... And so, that's actually a very dramatic scene. The scene with the president at the end is very dramatic. Oh, it's really good. One thing, though, that I remember in the movie that I noticed at the end of the movie is that the movie presents Wolverine kind of as the main character, and it might start out like that, where he's the focus. We're sending him back in time. It's him who's in the future and the past, so we're cutting back and forth a little bit, and we're following him until a point. At the point that he finds Xavier, he hunts down Xavier and Beast living at the mansion. The mansion has been all but deserted because this is during the time of Vietnam. The students and most of the teachers have all been drafted for the war. So there's like no one, and like Xavier is heartbroken because of that too. Like, this guy really has had just one punch in the balls after another. So it's incredible that this guy hasn't already committed suicide, and to see him work his way back from that. But I've already talked about Xavier. Wolverine. We start the movie off, he's kind of the focus. We got to get him back in time, and then we go back in time with him, and he becomes, he's hunting down Xavier. He's helping break Magneto out of wherever he is. He is slow, he is getting this group together. But once they're together, like basically after the scene in the airplane, after they've recovered Magneto and Xavier and Beast, and they're flying in an airplane, at that point, there's almost no focus whatsoever on Wolverine. We keep kind of bouncing back to the future, where it's like, I'm still here in the future, but he becomes a side character. He starts riding back seat. Not say that he doesn't say anything for the rest of the movie, because we come back to him at the very end of the movie, and I'm not going to spoil the end of the movie. Not the end, but I just thought of something. I really do have to wrap this up. But Wolverine just becomes this kind of side character at this point. He comes back and he talks and he fights, but he's no longer the focus after that point in the movie. After that point in the movie, about I guess an hour into it, we forget that Wolverine's even there. And so which sometimes that's disappointing when a main character kind of rides backseat, but that's a dynamic movie where the movie changes focus from Act 1 to Act 2. It's no longer about Wolverine in Act 1. It's now about Charles Xavier and Raven and Magneto in Act 2. Again, just very well written, and the story flowed like that you almost forgot about it. You forgot that we started off with Wolverine and now he's kind of riding backseat. That is a good story when they can actually do stuff fluidly and you don't realize it. Great story. So I will end it with that this story was very dynamic. It was very good. Was this Academy Award winning good? Not, I don't know if I would go that far. But in terms of a good movie, here you go. Here's a good superhero movie. You don't necessarily need to see X-Men First Class to understand this movie. Or any of the other X-Men movie, I don't think. It doesn't hurt. It helps you out if you do watch those movies, if you do go see them. But you don't necessarily need to go see them to understand this movie. Though I do recommend X-Men First Class and the first two X-Men. Other than that, I thought maybe this was it in terms of X-Men storylines, where we're going to end the movie. This will be the last X-Men movie, and we're going to just kind of let it go. Evidently, I am wrong. again, this is just me doing research and knowing who these things are. At the end of the credits, this is the post-credit sequence for X-Men Days of Future Past. We're in ancient Egypt, where some dude is making pyramids, and behind him are these four riders on horseback. I know who that is! My brother had no freaking clue. But again, this is just because I've done enough research on it. I know a little about a lot. Evidently, they're setting up to do the Age of Apocalypse. That dude creating pyramids with his mind and his hands was Apocalypse, and the Four Horsemen were his. The Four Horsemen of Apocalypse. So evidently, the next storyline in the X-Men movie, if they are going to make it that far, and this movie made buku bucks, as I understand, so they're probably going to go ahead with this. Yeah, we're going to go into the Age of Apocalypse after this. And actually, I've just exhausted all my knowledge on the Age of Apocalypse by telling you it's the Age of Apocalypse and that it's Apocalypse with its Four Horsemen. So I'll have to do some research to further my knowledge of that. Other than that, one final thing is, in the comics, Kitty, in the comics, Kitty, they stopped the assassination in the comics, and Kitty's mind, her future mind in her present body, snaps back to the future. But the comic stuff in the story, it doesn't follow her back to the future. It stays in the present, and then the characters are just like, Kitty, are you alright? She's like, what happened? I don't know what's going on. And they said, oh, your consciousness must have snapped back to the future. I guess, I wonder what happened. And, they're like, I guess we'll have to wait and find out. We never find out in the comics. We never go to the future with her to find out if everything works, if everything's cool. So, but in the movie, we do. We find out what happens, and I thought that was well done also. Anyway, I've talked long enough on this, and I really got to get back on the road. So, anyway, go see X-Men Days of Future Past. I thought it was really good. As far as other stuff, the new I heard that movie Sucks review should be up soon for the 2009 Star Trek. I'm hopefully going to be home in 3 weeks, and I'll be able to do a lot more when I get there. So anyway, see ya.